Welcome back, everybody. It was a short coffee break, and now we are going in the second day sort of tools and platform session. And today we will have four highly practical talks covering topics of search and analytics with knowledge graphs. The first two speakers are Ivo Kabakov and Borislav Ankov, who are the backbone of the Ontotext analytics business. They will explain why there is a special relationship between knowledge graphs and the text analytics. The talk will cover why this is an important, what it takes to develop a natural language processing pipeline, and how all this technology can be packed as a commercial offering. A big welcome to Ivo and Borko. The broadcast is yours.
Thank you, Vasu. So I'm sharing my screen now, and I assume that you can see it.
Yes.
So, as Vasu introduced me, thank you for that, Vasu. Text analysis with the Ontotext platform is one of the pillars of the things that we do. So apart from the product division at Ontotext, we have a few divisions or a few business units that are dealing with analytics, and one of them is dealing especially with text analysis that we're going to cover today. Solutions oriented towards content management. So briefly about us, yours truly, I'm having the honor of leading the Semantic Analytics Solutions unit at Ontotext. Currently, I've been with the company for a dozen of years yet already and covered the full tech ladder and spectrum of tasks. And to get together with me, I will have the reliable support of Borislav Ankov, who is, apart from a backbone for our unit as a project manager, in the past year or so transitioning into a new role as a product owner of one of our tools that we're gonna talk about a little later today in our presentation. So what is it going to cover? This, as you may guess, is quite a big topic, text analysis. And I'm afraid we won't be able to cover it thoroughly, but here's what we aim to go through as an overview today. Why we do it, how do we see the value, why do we intermingle it with knowledge graphs, and what is the loop that we're talking about. So after the why, we're going to talk about what is it we do and how we do it, and what actually do we offer to the market. But before we start, you're probably familiar with Ontotext, and we're developing and naming this event as Knowledge Graph Forum. And I'm sure you pretty well know that GraphDB is our flagman product that we are proud of. But it's actually not all that we do. As I mentioned earlier, we have a few business units that are dealing with things on top of our products. And this was actually, if you've paid attention yesterday to Tanas Kirakov, our CEO's opening of the keynote, Ontotext has been devised from the ground up to deal with text and discover metadata and to deal with natural language processing. So we actually can say that they are part of our DNA. So what is text analysis? Let's, for common understanding, have our own definition stated here. So text analysis for us is means or process that aims to extract machine-readable information from unstructured text. That is, in order to enable data-driven approaches, mainly towards managing content. So if we have this definition, and you can probably relate to text analysis in many ways, I assume many of you present here, you will also know that text analysis can be actually quite overwhelming in some cases, especially if you want to deal with it or tackle it in business context, because you may need to cover a lot of topics. You may need to answer a lot of questions. Everything that we're talking today about is not just taking some API of extracting people from some content. We can say that this is more of a commodity nowadays. But handling this against a big knowledge graph that can provide a lot of interlinks between content in that and that knowledge graph. And providing this in a commercial context can be quite challenging. And here, I've not meant for you to parse all of these questions. This is just a small pool that I've come up with for 1 minute of all the questions that you will need to answer if you need to tackle with a text analysis solution. So actually, if this is so hard and so overwhelming and there could be so many parameters behind it, why do it? Well, we claim that understanding unstructured content can actually bring business value. Let's look at a few examples that we've brought up, that we've covered in solutions that we've built over the years. Few examples over here can be discovered competitors of certain companies of interest in a certain region. What other startup companies are similar to companies that I have invested in might be the question that some other people are asking. Or what is the correlation of events between share price fluctuations for some companies? Linked to that may be actually pinpointing growth and distress indicators that are appearing in news articles for certain businesses. Or what is the public's opinion on a topic? Here, a fun fact is that we're quite often bragging with is that a couple of weeks before Brexit, one of our data scientists analyzed social media content and actually said, you know what, it turns out, or it looks like Brexit is going to pass. And we said, no, we must be mistaken. But it actually was the thing that actually happened. So a lot of these questions can be interesting, so that we need to employ natural language understanding to answer. What stands behind us to do that is our premise that knowledge graphs can really improve text analysis and thus content management. And that is because they provide rich domain knowledge that serves as context, and that context is used for interpretation and facilitates consumption. And this is our pyramid that leads from data to information, knowledge, and wisdom. And that the thing that we do stepping on top of our products is actually that we marry text analysis with knowledge graphs. They provide the context. That context leads to understanding. And I'm sure you're well aware that actually to understand natural language in our everyday lives, we use contextual awareness all the time. So we claim that text analysis can really step on that contextual shoulders, and we can extract new concepts, new relationships, which can actually then later be added to the knowledge graph back. So if you're following me and if you're paying attention, you will notice that actually we're talking about that self-enforcing loop, how knowledge graphs or the context behind the knowledge graphs helps text analysis, and text analysis extracts metadata from certain content and can enrich the knowledge graphs, which is that self-enforcement thing that we claim is a great combination between knowledge graphs and text analysis. So to be a bit more practical and concrete, what is the business value that we claim we deliver with knowledge graphs and NLP? Well, for example, you can discover knowledge that is locked away in some heterogeneous content. That may be multiple document stores or content stores that are not interconnected, that are storing different parts of your organizational or enterprise's content. We can enable you through such functionality and solutions to reuse and repurpose that content, to interlink it, to make it easier to consume, and last but not least, get insights from that. So how do we do it? Well, our suggestions to respond to these challenges is, in order to discover knowledge, we can link it to common domain concepts from a cohesive knowledge graph. That is a very important part. That is and of itself a part of a whole another presentation that we've covered many times. To reuse and repurpose your content, you can repackage it for different distribution channels, for different personas, or for different business objectives. And to make it easier to consume. You can organize it through classification. You can, through recommendations, you can make it explorable in a non-linear way, and increase the engagement of your users through many of our customers. We have actually proven that with real life data, to expose it via various interfaces, etc. And last but not least, the insights that we mentioned can really make you much more from your data than you're currently using. That is our claim, and the things that we have proven over the years with many of the solutions that we've built. So after we've stated this value, let's jump into how this actually works. And we're going to cover a little bit more details of the text analysis services behind that. As I mentioned, our text analysis offerings step on the shoulders of our products. One of them, and our flagman, is GraphDB. And with its latest versions, you probably know that GraphDB now has a text mining plugin that enables integration of third-party text analytics services. And also the latest version has a Kafka connector that enables us to integrate in a very smooth and live manner with the updates in our knowledge graph. So the stars behind all these integrations are GraphDB as our flagman with its text mining plugin and its Kafka connector. But it's not the only thing that we do, as I mentioned at the beginning. We are also developing things that we will introduce today, and more details we'll reveal in upcoming webinars and events. The Text Analysis Studio that enables all the human-in-the-loop activities. That is a segment that Borislav is going to cover in just a few minutes. And through our partners' integration, or through our integration with our partners' offerings, that is among many others, semantic web companies, Pool Party, Synaptica's Graphite, that's Metafacts' Metafactory. We can provide, through integrating their products into a text analysis solution, a user-friendly way to implement the graph editing or taxonomy management functionalities. It really depends on the particular use cases that you might be interested in. So let's peek inside that text analysis site for a while. It will be, as I mentioned, an overview because we can't go into too many details about that. But let me share with you what are the types of text analysis tasks that we usually cover in our solution. That are quite often document classification, where you might have your own taxonomy, or you might want to classify content against some standard taxonomy. That may be named entity recognition, where extracting different classes of entities might bring value to your organization. In that regard, person, location, or organization, or PLO, as we commonly refer to it, PLO extraction is quite often a requirement for us, or we can claim that it's becoming a commodity nowadays either. Another more challenging and more interesting aspect of dealing with text analysis and against certain content is relationship extraction, and that is discovering relations between entities. And of course, by that we mean discovering relations that are mentioned in some documents, not relations that are present in a knowledge graph or in a data set that we may acquire. And so many times we have implemented recommendation services for publishers. As I mentioned, we have proven that this is actually increasing our clients' user engagement. And for many of our solutions, we've done semantic search implementation, where we can provide faceted or free text search. And why we call it semantic search, that is because it's more than the full text indexing that the standard search engines are providing. Through the links in knowledge graph, through the things that we can link them to in certain content, we can infer a lot more than might be present explicitly stated in the text. So the way we approach these tasks for text analysis can be generally classified into two categories. They can be either rule-based or machine learning based. In real life, however, it's quite often that we may need to combine both. We may have, or your organization's way of working or your business may have certain logic that you can actually express in a formal way, but after that may come the task or may come the role of machine learning based components that will take it from there for the next step. And throughout the years, we have built technology stacks that enables us in a very efficient way to integrate both ways, a rule-based expression and language with neural networks and machine learning components, be it a linear machine learning classifiers or TensorFlow neural networks. So again, how do we do that? Well, the thing that we're referring to is text analysis pipelines. For us, this is a set of interdependent steps, and each subsequent step depends on the outcome of the former. So here's a peek of what are the generally necessary steps for such a text analysis pipeline to cover. It usually needs to do some pre-processing, which might need, of course, a sentence splitting, part of speech tagging, and morphological analysis. And that is just for the start, in order to start doing the matching and extracting keywords or named entities against certain gazetteers of datasets that we have already ingested in the knowledge graph. And to do named entity recognition, and one very important part is the named entity linking, which actually not many people out there do, because it's quite often that you get taggers for people as a commodity. But what exactly that person is from a certain knowledge base and who is that John Doe is quite a challenging task in some cases. And named entity linking is one of the tasks that we've solved many of our clients. And stepping on named entity linking is a higher order of complexity. Another task, which is relation extraction. That may be relations between a person and an organization, like person who is Elon Musk is a CEO of Tesla, for example, or SpaceX, or yeah, that may be not formally the truth. He's the founder, but yeah, you get the idea. And relation extraction can also be relations between organizations, like in the cases of merger and acquisition events, like asset deals, etc. And to illustrate that principle pipeline that I mentioned, here's a sentence that we took from the news article, which is talking about, yeah, I mentioned Tesla. So let's talk about one of its competitors. NIO is a Chinese company. And if we parse this sentence through our pipeline, here's what you may find. You may find the sentence, you may find what is the verb, what is the preposition, what is the adverb. We need to stem it in order to quite often actually match both all the different forms and such gazetteer matches or gazetteer entries. You may need to discover a certain amounts, measurements, years or dates, certain keywords, and that is just the foundation in order to do, as I mentioned, named entity and relation extraction. Here over a concrete sentence as an example. And if we look at another kind of example, this one focused around what happens behind the scenes in the knowledge graph, that may be a bit hard to parse outright, but actually if you focus that everything that is with the dashed lines are things that we can extract or infer through the relations of the knowledge graph or through our text analysis, and the color coding is just the different types of entities, you can see that if we have a data set that is contains both Tesla and NIO, and we have descriptions for both companies, while parsing these descriptions through text analysis pipeline, we can enrich the knowledge graph and know that actually NIO is located in Shanghai, and we will know what Shanghai is because we will link it to the geonames ID of that city. We can infer, of course, that it is also located in PRC. So if we will be able to answer such questions as, please give me all the companies from the knowledge graphs that are dealing with EV and are operating on the Chinese market. If we have parsed through articles that Tesla is building a factory in Shanghai and that NIO is headquartered there, we can really for free answer such questions that you might not get otherwise from if you were to model that data in a relational database. We can also, as I say, for free, answer such questions like, well, give me the executives in all EV companies, or that may be in EV companies that are, again, operating in Asia. So this is one of the small examples. This is not all the data really that needs to that happens behind the scenes, but just giving you an illustration and a peek of what goes inside of it. And if we apply this in real life solutions, there might be challenges that you may not expect, or you might, it depends on your experience. But if we're talking about general contexts like people, organizations, and locations, as I mentioned earlier, they're quite often a standard thing that people assume that will provide entity linking against a knowledge graph for. Well, in such cases, we arrive at the complexity of a disambiguation. If there is a sentence mentioning Paris, we need to know whether this is Paris in France, in Texas, or that's actually Paris Hilton. That disambiguation, in some cases, like our demonstrator, that is public, and you'll have a reference for that. Probably many of you have already seen it, which is available at now Ontotext.com. Well, what stands in the pipeline behind now Ontotext.com is a disambiguation machine learning model that contains over 400,000 features, just because of that complexity of when we have a big cohesive knowledge graph comprised of, for example, the organizations from Wikidata, as now is based upon. We have such cases of ambiguity that it's quite a challenge to solve them. And speaking of challenges in real life situations, I would like to pass the ball on to Borislav, who is actually going to cover the things regarding the operational aspects of our solutions.
Indeed, many thanks, Ivo, and thank you for the introduction, as well as for covering the and setting the stage for the issues encountered in text analysis. So you should be seeing my screen now, I believe, and
Yep.
if I were to take it up from where you left off, Ivo, basically once you look at a text analysis NLP solution in a real life commercial environment. In order for that to happen, there are multiple processes that need to be present, put in place, and executed, just so that you could support the text analysis operation. Here we've outlined 4 of those, and they more or less follow in logical, chronological order. Of course, depending on the type of a solution, the use case that's tackled, as well as the complexity and scale of it. Some of those processes are more crucial than others, but generally speaking, in terms of processes, you need to establish a baseline and a ground truth, so to say. And this is usually done via creating and maintaining a gold standard corpus. That corpus contains the ground truth over predefined and standardized use case. So in the case of people extraction, as Ivo mentioned, it would contain people data. In the event of, let's say, mergers and acquisitions, it would contain organizations data as well as the actual merger data. So that's one process. During this process, a lot of things actually, as an output of this process, first you have a baseline, but more importantly, quite possibly you have an overview of gaps in your knowledge graph, such as new instances and new concepts data that your knowledge is lacking at this point. So you naturally need some way to enrich this knowledge graph with the new instance data. Once you have those in place and you're in the operation mode, so you have your solution built, it's performing and yeah, it's basically doing what it's designed to do. Naturally, the question arises, what do you do with erroneous extraction and results which are deviating from the definitions present in the gold standard corpora? In this case, especially if the quality of the operation is crucial, you will need some way to fix that erroneous extraction, perhaps on a live environment, perhaps on an environment that's mission critical, where multiple or thousands of users are present. So time is of the essence. And lastly, you would need to make sure that those mistakes and that effort that's put into fixing the output and bringing it up to standard on that live environment is utilized via some kind of machine human in the loop interface, so that the algorithm and the NLP extraction keeps learning as time goes by, basically, and you don't spend the same effort for basically the same classes and types of errors. So if we were to put that into a nice picture that you could that represents what we're talking about. First, you'll see here that you have the user, and most importantly, ideally that would be a subject matter expert. So this would be a non-technical person, not a data scientist, not a DevOps person or any other technical person, but actually a person that's really into the subject matter, that was used, or his knowledge was utilized during the initial definition of the use case and formalization of the requirements, so to say. And that would be the person most closest to the data. So that would be the person that sees the gaps in the data and fills them, thus enriching the knowledge graph on the one hand. In parallel, that would also be the person, or a set of persons, of course, that would transfer the requirements outlined in, let's say, annotation guidelines or annotation principles, basically the formal expression of the use case, into the data itself. That would be done via the text analysis studio, as Ivo mentioned, which we'll look at a bit more in the next slides. But as an output of that process, the subject matter experts would then create a data set with ground truth examples, which would be synced to the knowledge graph and which would be fed into the machine learning and text analysis services, so that they are evaluated and their quality is maintained and improved as time goes by. On that note, because we looked at the processes, perhaps it makes sense to take a step back and to focus on the operational challenges or issues present in any NLP text analysis solution or task, really. So first off, you have data, as Ivo said, that's so you have data that's locked in a vast amount of unstructured content. So you speculate that within you have knowledge which you can then utilize to unlock or enhance some business vertical or process. Once this is done, you would need to establish some kind of a benchmark so that you know how good you actually are at unlocking that data, and that you can, of course, maintain control of that process as time goes by, making sure that you're not falling below a certain threshold or a baseline that you're comfortable with, or that is a crucial KPI of your business use case. And of course, there is also the question of the changing data in the real world. So you also have to be and stay on top of that process. You have to invest into keeping in sync the evolving concepts and instance data with your text analysis pipelines or services and your ground truth content. So those three have to be in sync in order to make sure that you're working with the latest data and that the results are as predictable as they should be. So in terms of workflows, the first problem of structuring the unstructured data, it falls into the corpus creation process. Then the quality is usually, in terms of workflow, falls under the results curation, fixing erroneous extraction, any irregularities that are present and outside of the baseline that you've previously established in the first step. Those need to be corrected. And of course, that data needs to be fed into the models so that you're not doing that as a continuous operation. And the model is actually leveraging the data that you're feeding it so that the classes and instances of error that you're seeing, they're being resolved as time passes and as examples are fed into the model. And lastly, the evolving data, concepts and instances data is something that's handled via the knowledge graph enrichment process. So those are the processes where these challenges and issues are handled, but in terms of how they're resolved and how we propose we solve them. So for the first, apologies. So for the first problem, we do that via basically providing you with a straight answer. Is the task that you're currently looking at, if that could be automated at all, and what's the threshold that and quality baseline that you could expect? So in this case, you have your subject matter experts, and they have their formalized requirements and use case. And by basically giving them the ability to express that in the data itself and measuring the percentage of agreement between the subject matter experts, if they can agree between themselves, that task could be automated via some kind of NLP extraction. The data that you produce during this first step then is used as an input in the second step, which is in terms of quality, what's the threshold that you're happy with and what's the threshold that would work in your use case. In this case, it's a bit of a, well, it's build or buy, right? So if you have a use case that's general enough and that could be covered via pre-existing commercial or open source text mining algorithms, we propose that you use the GraphDB text mining plugin for that and basically measure those open source or commercial or internal text analysis services against the ground truth content that you've produced answering the first question, and see if something pre-existing could work for your needs. If not, of course, you could leverage that very same data again to actually build a custom and bespoke text mining algorithm that's fully under your control, fully under your supervision. And via our product, you could actually basically operate it in the future by feeding it and monitoring its quality, making sure that it's within acceptable parameters. Of course, the evolving concepts data, that's in GraphDB. Our product, it's also natively integrated with GraphDB. So we're actually automating that process, and you don't need operational maintenance, operational resources to play catch up. We're solving that process by automatically syncing the instance data with the ground truth data set and with the text analysis services, in case those are, of course, internal and not external commercial services. Right, so the product, as Ivo mentioned, that's the text analysis studio, which we're currently working on. And in terms of value, what we aim to deliver is first, we aim to give you the ability via your business people, via your subject matter experts, to quickly find out if the use case that you currently have is something that could be automated. And if it could be automated, then via the native GraphDB integration and via the text mining plugin, you could quickly find out if there is something on the market or an open source tool or something in your, let's say, other business departments, something available that's out there that would actually solve your use case within an acceptable quality and acceptable level. If that's the case, great, and you're happy with it, you could continue to monitor the performance of a set text analysis service and make sure that it continues to perform well for your use case. If not, you could use that data to basically design and develop something that's completely under your control. You could also, that could also be maintained and evolved as time goes by with additional features, with basically and reach an even higher manner of quality. But yeah, something that's directly under your control and something that's in terms of quality maintenance is handled and managed directly by your subject matter experts. And of course, we aim to reduce the complexity of the whole operation by automating painful processes such as staying up to date with the data, processes that don't really add any value to your operation, but are a hindrance and a cost that has to be taken into account. And in terms of key features, this is something that is centered around the concept of self-service. So you have your subject matter experts, they define your use case. You basically choose where to install the software, either on-premise or use a managed service, bring the subject matter experts into the software, import your data, start working with it, and in a really quick time start to derive the value that we talked about of can I actually automate this problem? Do I really have a vast amount of knowledge locked within my content? And is there something on the market that can help me evaluate, that can help me reach a target quality level that I'm happy with? Of course, you could also then curate and fix any issues that arise as this is put in a live environment and a live operation in a timely manner. That could then be fed into your models, thus improving them. There are various automation features, as we said, in terms of bulk actions, stuff that basically we try to keep repetitive steps to a minimum. So we understand that the subject matters SMEs time is valuable. So yeah, we try to utilize that time as best as we can. And the other cool thing is that this is actually a native integration and works over GraphDB. So in terms of integration of your pre-existing solutions, you have your GraphDB with your knowledge base. You just plug the text analysis studio on top, and as we said, via self-service, you start to derive the value in a quick amount of time. And the other key feature is that in terms of vendor locking to some text analysis service provider, we want to completely avoid and circumvent that. This is via the integration of via GraphDB's text mining plugin allows us to be agnostic of the text analysis service or services, however many of those are incorporated in the current use case. So vendor locking is something that's completely circumvented as a part of this product offering. And since we mentioned product offerings, perhaps Ivo, best to return the ball to you to talk about the product offerings that we have available.
Thank you, Gorko. So, yeah, I'll take over from here and continue sharing my screen. Thank you for this introduction. So as we mentioned, apart from GraphDB, we're actively working on other products and offerings. And to complement them with services, here's what we actually have. As you've probably understood by now, or you're pretty well aware of, text analysis is a big topic because you need the know-how, you need the people and the knowledge engineers and the NLP engineers to cover that. You need appropriate tooling to be able to, as Borislav mentioned, to be able to curate examples, to be able to provide the benchmarks for a machine to get trained against, to be able to evaluate the performance of machine learning model, to be able to manage your graph, etc., etc. You need the processes and the people and the tools to do that. Also, you need the know-how how to operationalize it and how to maintain it over time with the evolving needs of your business and, of course, with the updates to the data and the content that you're consuming. That's why we've been on the market for about 20 years now. We can build a custom solution for you. And we've done this for many of our clients. Such are actually also present in our current Knowledge Graph forum, like our friends from the Institute of Engineering Technology, also we have developed solutions for BBC, for the Financial Times, for many other organizations, also serving government institutions over the years. And we've done that going through the entire journey with our clients to design the solution, to craft a knowledge graph, to customize or extend the text analysis. In some cases, it has been the case of actually developing bespoke text analysis components for them, because they were very domain specific, to integrate the human in the workflows, like the ones that Borislav just talked you through. And of course, last but not least, to maintain that, to support it over time, and to evolve that system. This is the custom solution side of things that we've covered for many years. But we're also acknowledging that pre-packaging solutions does actually accelerate delivery. And we're trying to, you may say, democratize such text analysis offerings by doing exactly that, so that we go from a platform which is combined with certain knowledge models and with our know-how and professional services as technology solutions, and later on, given the subject matter expertise in your vertical domain, through specific business cases. These have been throughout the years for us, many cases in the media and publishing sectors, in financial services, life sciences and healthcare, as you've probably seen yesterday. Great presentation by Todor and Ilian. But that's not all.
Wrap up, because there is one more.
Yep, and the last thing that I want to mention is that apart from these products, we're also working on prepackaged offerings that will lower the level of complexity of such big solutions that we've covered. And they will do that by providing horizontal technological offerings into 3 separate tiers or software bundles that we call Essentials, Expert, and Enterprise. The Essentials bundle will be covered by giving you more naive but very explainable and the ability to have the full control. The Expert level will step onto that and extend it with metadata preservation and search capabilities. And the Enterprise will throw in machine learning, retraining capabilities, content-centric services like enterprise search, recommendations, etc. So stay tuned. We'll be covering these offerings in later webinars, events, and they will be, of course, present on our website. Thank you very much for your interest. The demonstrators that we have are public, available at these addresses. There is also a white paper that is covering the topic that we've talked you through that you can access freely on our website.